So this is a switch for the Foredom pedal. It's a variable speed switch, and I haven't had much time to use it, but it's not a very refined trigger, it seems to me. You go through the slower speeds so fast, it doesn't feel real good. What I've decided to do is cut some of the spring off in the actual switch and see what happens there. So there's the electronics there. This little slide here slides up and down on this here, and then you've got a main switch back here with a heavier spring. You can see the spring here. Once the trigger slides to a certain point, it triggers that big bar with the spring on it. It's full on speed where it's bypassing the electronics here. That's what I assume. I've marked here where once you push the button down, this will be level with this edge here, and that's when this main trigger here switches on. Up until that point, like I said, I believe you're using electronics, and I'm not real familiar with these, so I'm not really sure whether I know what I'm talking about. Here's the switch that I took off. There's two of these here, and it looks like only one of them is set off when the trigger moves. You start applying energy to it, and between here and here, you've got control on these two bars. But once it gets this point here, you can see the switch go over. That gives it full throttle. Right there. It's just a little bit under an inch and 2/8. So I'm probably going to cut 2.5/8, 3/8 off of this spring. This here, after cutting it 3 or 4 times to get to this length, I'll have to sand this flat and put this back on there on the bottom. The measurement that I have for this now, see, we can give you the numbers here. I cut this about 3/4. Depending on the switch that you get, it'll probably be a little different, but I think I could have gone just a hair bit longer with this. Just a bit more tension, but not by much. So we're going to give it a shot. The trigger is much softer. So I'm thinking that I'll get a lot better maneuverability at the very top, at the very finer end, and we'll see how it runs. All right, we'll put the spring back in here. This is the side that I cleaned up. I'm going to put the cap on that side so that it hasn't changed as far as the seating goes. Slip in there. Got some tension on there. This also lengthens it by just a hair, so maybe I'm okay with the job. I thought maybe I had trimmed it just a bit too short. To push it in first before you slip it in, push it all the way in, and then drop it down. Now we'll run it back and forth. You can see that it's grabbing it's pushing that other trigger just fine. I think that's going to do it. You need a screwdriver to pull this tab up here, slip it under there, pop it up. You've got another one on this side, but what this one here, you use a screwdriver. On this side, you slip it in there. This one right here, I had to use something like more like a blade, like an X-Acto blade. And then you've got another one right here that you use a screwdriver for to pop it off. That's it. I just have to plug this back in and we'll get back to it. Still not very smooth, but I should be able to get the gradation when I initially start pushing it. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to give you a break on the time it takes to put this screw in to the other side of the spring, because there's not much to it, but it just takes a little bit of time. Back together, got the screw in there. There's a little bit of play in here, but again, I don't know what a good one would feel like, but you can see there's a little play there. I assume that does nothing. This is where I start feeling tension, right here. You can see it still kind of catches a little bit, but it is so much smoother. It's still got plenty of tension on it, but I can just with my fingers, it just feels so much better. As long as I put it back together, I didn't break it, it should work. It should work better, but we'll see whether that's the case. All right, there's my tool. There's that, so you can kind of see the speed. And there's the foot pedal. You can see I didn't break it, right? I was afraid of that. But the pedal, is so much easier to control. It's not great, but works real nice. I could not get any control from this earlier on. Look at that. You hear that where the motor kicks in? You can hear the motor kick in. That's when it's full on. Right there. Just like I showed you on the switch.